throughout the offseason. We've been picking at whatever rations of news that we can find. But this week we were actually blessed with a couple of pieces of news, specifically today, that we're going to be able to touch on. But of course, before we get into any of that, I am very excited to welcome my good friend Dan that I've met throughout the football community, and he's going to be a tremendous guest on the show tonight. He's extremely smart. He knows a lot, not about just his hometown team being the Packers, but he knows a lot about the NFL in general, and I can't wait to pick his brain. So I'm going to bring him on right now. Dan, how are you doing tonight, man? I'm excited for the conversation.
I'm doing great, Michael. I'm so excited to be here, ready to talk some football. We did get some nice blessings today in the news, so very excited for that. We can get right into it.
Yeah, totally. So it's going to be a great time, but of course we got to get you introduced for people that may not be familiar with who you are. So this is the guest spotlight segment. Dan does do a lot of NFL talk, but he also talks the NBA, which is completely out of my realm of knowledge. I can kind of dabble into the very basic common knowledge type things with the NBA, but he also indulges there. I mean, he's got a massive following on TikTok, by the way. He's got I think he's up to 56. Was it 57,000 you hit today?
Yeah, we just hit 57 today. Yeah.
He just hit 57,000. So that's pretty insane. He's sponsored by Underdog and Prize Picks. He's a huge fantasy football guy too. So, once again, fantasy football, it's not necessarily my cliche, but if you ever need some advice, Dan's definitely your guy. And he's also got a YouTube channel himself. He does everything of the sort, and every other link that he has will be down in his link tree in the comment section, in the description below. I'm sorry. But Dan, let him know more about yourself. I can't do all the introducing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following football since I'm 21 right now. I've been following it since I was 7. Been playing fantasy since I was 9. I mean, I've just been addicted to it. Really, like I like, as you see, like, it's the off season, and I'm making content right now for the past 4 months. That's how I grew my channel, just off season content. So I'm all in. I'm just picking up the YouTube again, just like you. I'm starting to push out some videos again, some longer formats. So really excited for that.
Yeah, and YouTube, it's definitely, I started with YouTube personally, and then I started to get into TikTok. I don't know if it was the other way around for you yourself, but it's definitely a lot different from the way content is made and the way you're able to get engagement between the two platforms. It's certainly been an adjustment period for myself, and I'm still kind of getting used to TikTok. I have far from mastered YouTube either, but it's definitely a lot different. So when it comes to YouTube, did you start with YouTube?
I did actually. I did last year for about the whole summer, and then I went back for my senior year of college, and I was like, this is too much. Like, YouTube is just so much harder, like making the thumbnails and editing and everything. It's like TikTok, you're live editing the whole time, so it's just perfect. So that was a good transition for me. And now that I have more time, I'm kind of getting back into it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you spoke to that narrative. I mean, I have a hard time keeping up. I used to be trying to do, daily uploads on YouTube. I'm killing myself, breaking my back, trying to get this YouTube content out, of course, with daily life getting in the way. And TikTok has been, a little bit of a bright spot in the sense of being able to push content out in such an easy way. And it honestly is the better way to grow at this point. And I think, it's something we can talk about on our own time. But anyway, before we get into it, I also want to welcome anybody that's in the chat. If you're in the chat, please say hello. Drop any questions, comments you might have. Kim, I hope you're doing great tonight. Pokemon, thank you for popping in. Let's get right into it. So we're going to start with the recent news for today. As we were kind of already touching on, there was some spoon-fed news that came out today, and I want to get to that right off the bat. Julio Jones signs with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This one kind of came out of left field. Julio is one of those guys that I think a lot of people thought could have ended up with the Green Bay Packers. And were you shocked when he ultimately didn't?
I actually really was. Today I came out, I posted a stitch from 3 weeks ago. I had a video 3 weeks ago where I talked about I'm taking him in every draft I'm doing because I think he's going to the Packers. I think he'll be Aaron Rodgers' number one guy. He did not. Yeah. I mean, it works. The Bucs is a great landing spot. It's going to fill in for AB. They'll probably get Godwin back at some point. But I mean, this is really weird for the Russell Gage signing, I think, because once Chris Godwin's back, I mean, that dude's just not going to play very much. So they didn't have to pay him too much. I think it was like a $10 million 1-year deal. But yeah, I love seeing it for Julio because I want that man to get a ring. He's finally going to play with an amazing quarterback like Tom Brady. And I think he'll be a better, obviously, locker room presence than Antonio Brown was. He'll fit just right in there. So.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, Julio Jones is a guy that obviously has struggled over the last couple of years with staying on the field. And I think I speak for not only yourself, but probably anybody that's watched football over the last decade or so. I mean, we all want Julio Jones to still be playing at a high level. I mean, he's been one of the most entertaining wide receivers, one of the most entertaining players that the NFL has had over the last 6 to 7 years. And it'd just be awesome to see him, kind of show that last little bit of gas that I think we all might think he has left in the tank. If he's able to kind of tap into that fourth gear, I think it'd be pretty remarkable to see him play with a guy like Tom Brady. As much as somebody, like us Bills fans, which I know that probably someone is viewing right now might hate him. But it would be awesome to see Julio Jones really pop off and kind of had a solid season. Working his way for a Super Bowl ring, which I think is very much deserved. And also another point I wanted to touch on. Odell Beckham actually tweeted out something regarding the signing. He kind of acted butthurt. I highly doubt he was bothered that much. But
Oh,
do
did he?
you
I didn't see
think?
this.
Yeah, he kind of tweeted out like, "Oh, I see y'all," or something along those lines. Obviously alluding to Julio getting signed before him. Where do you think Odell ends up?
Well, first, I think it makes sense to sign Julio over him because Odell's not going to play. He's got to get picked up by like a playoff team at this point.
Mm.
Like, he has to sign with a good team or wait until the playoffs come around, sign with one of them because I mean, an ACL in February, that's just unheard of to come back for the start of the season, let alone any point of the season. But I would have thought the Rams, Allen Robinson obviously throws a wrench in that. Maybe the Packers, like I think Packers will still make the playoffs pretty easily, win the division. And we'll need a number one by then for sure. Cause I don't know how much Lazard and Christian Watson are going to be able to do for us. So, yeah, I mean, I'd say Packers, but every time I say Packers with any star, it never happens. So maybe I shouldn't say that.
Especially with wide receivers for some reason. They seem
Yeah.
so just reluctant to go out and get any sort of solidified talent at the wide receiver position. I remember there's been Will Fuller rumors. There's obviously been Julio Jones rumors over the last couple of years. It seems like anybody that seems to make sense for the Packers, they just sit back and watch them go somewhere else. And I never really knew why or understood it. But
And the first time with Antonio Brown was actually to the Packers too when he left the Steelers. Like
yeah,
I was so ready for that too. And it just maybe because it's cold. Will Fuller came out and said it was too cold for him. I mean, he's still out there. We'll take him. I mean,
yeah, at this rate, you'll take anybody for that sorry wide receiver room we got right now. But honestly, I think Aaron Rodgers I think he'll fare. This could only probably be beneficial to him in the sense of building that legacy up further, just because Aaron Rodgers has always had that Devontae Adams in his wide receiving core. So I think it'll almost be beneficial to him to be able to ball out without that anchor by his side and kind of show everybody that he really is the best quarterback in the NFL, one of the best to ever play the game. But enough of the Julio Jones signing. We're going to move on to something that also happened. I think it was yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. But an anonymous defensive coordinator who I've been hearing some rumblings probably was like Jack Del Rio or something, just because that guy's just an asshole. But he said apparently Lamar Jackson will never be one as a QB. I assume that means a top quarterback in the NFL. I don't know if that's some football verbatim that went over my head, but either way, it obviously means he doesn't have faith in Lamar Jackson to be a top quarterback. And I wanted to get your opinion on this. Do you kind of relate in this kind of conversation when it comes to Lamar, or do you think he's got the capability to be a one?
yeah, I think right now I have him like right on that borderline top 10. He's basically right with Kyler Murray for me. But obviously, the quote was something like if he won 12 MVPs in a row, like he still wouldn't consider him. Like
Yeah.
obviously, if he returns to that I think it was 2018 form, like yeah, he'll be like one of the top 3 QBs in the NFL. Right now, I don't know if I could see that with those poor receiving options he has. Like that's kind of tough to do. But if he's able to like get 1,400 yards in the ground or something crazy like that, I mean, for sure, I don't think. Like I guess I'd typically rather have a Mahomes type of passer just to like when you're falling behind in games. But if he's able to do it, with what he's been dealt, then yeah, like I mean, he's never had a great receiving core, and he's already been this successful. I think if he's able to get another MVP, yeah, he's right up there with anybody.
Yeah, I agree. And it's Lamar Jackson's a guy that you don't necessarily need the top. I think if you're going to go with a quarterback that doesn't need a top wide receiving core, it's going to be Lamar Jackson, just
Right.
because he can carry so much weight on his own shoulders. But I think something that's important in this conversation too is how good the defense is going to be for Baltimore. I think Baltimore will be just fine if Lamar Jackson can carry a decent load, which we all know he can, and if the defense is able to consistently, generate turnovers and get stops on 4th down, get them off the field, and give Lamar Jackson more opportunities with the ball to burn clock and score. I think that's a big part of Lamar Jackson's success story too, is always that defense that's been pretty stout for him. And he's going to need that again, especially without any playmakers aside from Mark Andrews. And, you can consider Rashad Bateman in that conversation by his side. So I do think Lamar Jackson could be there if he's able to bounce back this season, which is going to be something I kind of expect. Pokemon says Lamar is the next Tyrod or Cam, up to health at this point. I think he's further from. I mean, between the two you provided, I think he's probably closer. I don't want to say closer to. I mean,
Well, he's closer
to
in
Cam,
build to Tyrod, but he's closer in like
right.
peak to Cam.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to get at, but I didn't know how to really explain it. But yeah, I mean, I think Lamar is going to be somebody that is able to avoid. No, never mind. I'm gonna stop my statement. I'm gonna say major. I was gonna say major injury, but I'm gonna relax that statement
We
right
never
now.
know.
Yeah, poor guy. Who can ever know with these running quarterbacks, man? But anyway, let's move on to the third piece of recent news that also came out. I think it was 3 or 4 days ago. Well, the original signing occurred, and then there were contract details released. Kyler Murray was extended by the Arizona Cardinals, 5 years, $230 million, and he also has contract details which say that he needs 4 hours of independent study time per week. And, we're left on the outside to assume that means that Kyler Murray really doesn't do much studying. He doesn't do much film watching on his own free time. And you'd like to think that's relatively concerning for a guy they're giving $250 million.
Yeah, it gets even worse too because they were talking in the contract about how he can't even have a phone or a TV on or anything. It has to be just film. So I don't know if they got him like setting up the Zoom camera and just watching the film. Like I don't know what it's like, but I mean, 4 hours a week is not hard. Like that should be Tom Brady probably gets 20 in. It should not be hard at all. But I feel like he's probably one of those guys who's always relied on athleticism. Kind of got by scrambling and whatnot. So I totally think it's fine for a team to ask when they're paying him this much money. Like if they know that's a weakness, for sure, ask for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that at least if I'm the Cardinals, I would have kind of thought, a little bit, once or twice, if am I about to give this guy this much money, if I have to include this in the contract details to get my quarterback to be motivated to take his game to the next level. If I'm not mistaken, was it Kyler Murray that hadn't lost a game like since high school or anything like that? I think it was Kyler Murray that
I
didn't
know
lose a
Trevor
game.
Lawrence had that too. I don't know if Kyler also had
Okay,
that.
yeah, that might be who I'm getting confused with.
Yeah.
One of these, first overall picks over the last couple of years. He hadn't lost a game in so long, and that's a guy like Kyler Murray would be able to do that just based off of pure athleticism alone,
Right.
all the way up to this point. That's only going to get him so far. I mean, we saw him struggle at the back half of 2021, especially without DeAndre Hopkins. I think that was the obvious caveat. When he went down, the whole team seemed to sink. So Kyler's going to have to do his homework, man, and he's not going to be athletic forever. If he wants to last in the NFL for a while, he's going to have to get smarter up in the head. Same thing with like a guy like Josh Allen. I mean, I think he's maturing mentally. His physical capabilities aren't going to carry him forever. And, obviously Josh Allen's taking those steps mentally, but Kyler Murray's kind of in that same boat. He can't rely on his athleticism forever.
Yeah.
All right. So that were the three pieces of recent news, a lot more than what we've been having lately. So that's definitely been a breath of fresh air. I've been picking at alternate uniforms and helmets. It's like there's only some conversation that I can't talk about that forever. All right, so let's move into the question and answer segment. I have 3 questions here for you, but if anybody in the comment section has a question you guys want to throw in the chat, and we will be happy to answer it, definitely go right ahead. So the question and answer, we're going to start with the first question, which is for you, Dan. Name the first player that comes to mind when you say what if.
I guess the first player would be RG3, I'd say. Just because, he had such an amazing rookie year. And, who knows? He could have been Lamar before Lamar, He could have been the next Vic. But yeah, him.
Yeah, RG3 is definitely a top option there. I think Andrew Luck could be at the top of this conversation. I think a guy that still plays in the NFL today is Saquon Barkley. If he's been able to stay on the field, Saquon Barkley's a big what if in my mind. I think he's physically got the tools to be the best running back in the NFL. It's just been a matter of staying on the field, and he can't seem to do that. But Barkley's at the top of this conversation for me personally. Jason says, that's not a question. But yeah, who else? I mean, there are a lot of other guys that really, Luke Kuechly is an answer that, can immediately come to mind.
Yeah.
What
I
if?
think I think Saquon's actually going to really take steps forward this year. I mean, we say he hasn't been on the field, but he did tear his ACL. What can you really do? And then last year he stepped on a guy's foot, so he rolled his ankle. It's like just these freak accidents. It's not like he's just super brittle. So I'm really hoping this year with Dable coming in, who's one of the best offense coordinators last year, now being head coach. I really feel like he's going to know how to utilize him and get him those receptions that he had his first year with Eli. They just kind of stopped throwing to him with Daniel Jones, and I'm hoping they can kind of rebound there and make him more into a dual threat running back again. I think he'll pop off again.
Yeah, I really hope so, man. Saquon Barkley, I remember watching the Cowboys game where he was running back to the huddle or something, and he stepped on somebody's foot and rolled his ankle. I was in disbelief. He was on my fantasy team, of course. I was in disbelief seeing this guy fall to the ground. I'm like, okay, maybe he just tweaked it a little bit, and then lo and behold, this guy's got a season-long ankle injury. I'm like, for the love of God, I can't catch a break. He can't catch a break. Poor dude. I feel horrible for him. But yeah, I mean, there's so many players that come to mind when you say what if. Is that what that said? What if Mo Lewis never hit Bledsoe on that 3rd and long? Tom Brady would never
True.
be. Yeah, Tom Brady would. I think Drew Bledsoe almost kind of died on that play.
He really did, yeah.
He got very, very hurt. I mean, yeah, you're right. Tom Brady would not be here today. But anyway, move on to the next question. Like I said, if you guys have any questions in the comments, please leave them down there. But the second question, this is specifically tailored toward you because I know you have a strong opinion about what I'm about to put up here. But how would you rank these 4 running backs? CMC, Christian McCaffrey, I'm sorry, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Jonathan Taylor.
Okay, are we saying, are they all healthy? Like everyone's healthy and
This
they're
is
full
just
talent?
your ranking right now.
All right.
And then you can do both lists. How about that?
Yeah, so the way I had it on my TikToks is Chubb, JT, CMC, Henry. Just because I think all of those, Chubb is by far the most efficient, 5 yards a carry every single year or more. JT obviously very talented, just came into the league. I'd like to see him keep it up too, but he's obviously been great. CMC I think is the overall most talented out of all of them because he's catching 100 balls in a season and still putting up like 1,300 yards, crazy amount of touchdowns. Like he had the best fantasy season of all time. Like I just love CMC. And then Derrick Henry is obviously a beast too, and he's very tough for defenses to keep up with. I know your Bills defense know that firsthand.
Thanks. Yeah, we do.
But yeah, I mean, like Derrick Henry is a chore to deal with for sure. But something about relying so much on a running back to me and giving him like 30 to even 35 carries in some of these games, like you just can't win as a team like that. Like the Titans will never win a Super Bowl giving this dude that many carries. It just won't happen. So I prefer running backs that are just more efficient on less touches that can let the team be a team,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm right there with you. It's kind of surprising that the Tennessee Titans went away from a guy like Ryan Tannehill after having Derrick Henry receive 200, or a guy like AJ Brown, I'm sorry, after having Derrick Henry go down, 8 or 9 games of the season, and he was nearing 230 touches in 8 games. It's like this guy is being relied on in such a heavy extent, and then you take away his only playmaker, the only other playmaker on the offensive side of the ball. You bring in Treylon Burks and you got Robert Woods, but it's like you already had so much weight on Derrick Henry's shoulders, and they kind of moved away from the other talent that was focusing off of Derrick Henry every so often. So it's a very interesting strategy, and the reason I wanted to talk about this too is because the volume thing is so big to me. I feel like the term being fresh with fresh legs applies more to running backs than it really does to any other player or position in the NFL, right? So I feel like a guy like Nick Chubb and, Jonathan Taylor, at least right now, because he's only been in the league 2 years, he runs with fresher legs on a more consistent basis because he's not receiving that kind of volume. And I think Derrick Henry, when he's at his best, when he's running with fresh legs, I think he is still probably the best running back in the NFL. Second best with Christian McCaffrey, because I'm 100% on the same page with you on that. But in comparison to Nick Chubb, if you got like Nick Chubb running next to Derrick Henry and they're both as fresh as they could be, I think Derrick Henry's the better back. But I know, Nick Chubb's efficiency statistics are just impossible to argue with. And I really can't argue with the take that Chubb's over him. I just feel like it's becoming consensus that Chubb is better.
I feel like it's also like just part of it is just watching them run. It's like Henry just kind of like plods through and nobody's even like near him, it seems almost. And like Nick Chubb's doing all these like crazy lateral movements and these quick, and JT's just like 4.3 speed, like this craziness. So I guess sometimes we do overlook Henry a little bit. And I could definitely agree that the fresh legs argument does make a lot of sense. Like how can you average 5 yards per carry when he's carrying it 30 times a game? Totally agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know. And I mean, going back on the guy that people really don't consider in this top conversation anymore, and Christian McCaffrey, I mean, people don't even want to consider him top 5 anymore. But this guy has a unique ability to be the best player on the field on both sides of the ball for both teams, no matter what, every single time he steps out there. And he really is, in my opinion, when healthy, a top 10 player in the league. He is, despite being a position of lacking importance nowadays, he just has this crazy ability to constantly make an impact every single time he's out there for the Carolina Panthers.
Yep.
All right. So question number 2, that was question number 2. Moving on to question number 3. And this is a question that I did ask on TikTok, and people were giving me answers that I was really confused about. But who is the most dominant player in the NFL?
Right now?
Yeah.
Aaron Donald.
Thank you. I mean, that shouldn't be hard, right? Like, that shouldn't be hard. Like, I posted this question. I think it was PFF that posted some stupid graphic, and they said, who's the most dominant player? And I posted it, and it was like a 4-second thing. I said, this is a very obvious answer, and I just put it up there. And people are like, I can hear an argument for Trent Williams or Patrick Mahomes. Or I'm like, come on, guys. Like, I keep moving my camera. Are we forgetting who Aaron Donald is? Like, dominance is Aaron Donald's middle name.
Yeah, I mean, the things he does, like the drop off from him to whoever you consider the number 2 D tackle, and then from Mahomes to Aaron Rodgers or however you order it, is like so much larger for the D tackles. You know what I mean? So it's like the man's getting double or triple teamed every play. I mean, you could say like Trent Williams was amazing last year, but yes, it was 1 year. Like Aaron Donald has done this every single year in a row. Trent Williams has kind of been very sporadic with his injuries and on and off the field. He's great too, no disrespect, but it's Aaron Donald, man. Like he's just different.
Yeah, I mean that's the best way to put it. Different is the only way to describe Aaron Donald. And I was just completely dumbfounded when people were trying to make this argument. I agree with you in the sense that Trent Williams deserves a lot of credit and a lot of love for the season he had, but it just confuses me where this sudden like overload of appreciation and love and just thinking this dude's one of the best players in the entire NFL period, which, although is true, he doesn't compare it to Aaron Donald in a respective case of comparing, position across position. It's just nobody does compared to Aaron Donald. And
Yeah.
putting this kind of conversation up for, debate is completely ridiculous to me. All right. So I did want to touch on that. So we'll move on. We're going to get into the Would You Rather segment. So as I was mentioning before the live show began, the Would You Rather segment is I'm going to take one player, put him up against 10 other players. We're going to try and keep it relatively fast paced so you can't think too much about it, but then we'll go back and reflect on some of the answers you gave. And we're going to go with somebody another guy that's been sparking controversy on my TikTok page. And Mike Gesicki. It's a random one. It's very random. I actually changed it like 20 minutes prior. I think I had AJ Dillon here before, and then I'm like, I'm going to do Mike Gesicki. But yeah, let's get right into it. So Mike Gesicki going through the gauntlet. Number one, we got Mike Gesicki against David Njoku. Who you take?
Gesicki.
All right, so easy first one. Second one, Mike Gesicki versus Gerald Everett.
Mike Gesicki.
Gesicki wins. Number three, Mike Gesicki versus Noah Fant.
I'm going to say no Fant.
He takes Noah Fant. Mike Gesicki, he loses early. Okay. Number four, Mike Gesicki versus Tyler Higbee.
Gesicki.
Gesicki wins number four. Number five, Mike Gesicki versus Pat Freirmuth.
Freirmuth.
Freirmuth wins. Number six, Mike Gesicki versus Zach Ertz.
This is right now, right?
Yep.
Ertz.
Ertz wins. Mike Gesicki, number seven versus Dawson Knox. Be careful. Be careful with this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go Knox.
Knox wins. All right. Number eight, Mike Gesicki versus Hunter Henry.
Henry
wins. Mike Gesicki versus Dalton Shultz.
Schultz
wins. And number 10, Mike Gesicki versus TJ Hockenson. All right. So we seem to kind of agree in the sense that the reason I asked this is because I posted a tight end list and Gesicki was at 13, right? And people were freaking out. Like every other comment was, why is Mike Gesicki so low? Why is he not top 10? Mike Gesicki's top 8. Mike Gesicki's top 7. I'm like, where did this this ridiculous amount of love for Mike Gesicki come from? The dude can't block. He had the third most. He was tied for the third most receptions in the for tight ends in the NFL last year. Yet he was like 8th in tight end receiving yards. He just doesn't fit this mold of a tight end perfectly. That I think he should. If you want to have him in this conversation that people were putting him in, and I just quite didn't understand it. So where would you put Mike Gesicki in your conversation if you had to lay it out?
So I think after about like the first. Like 6-ish tight ends. I think it's just like like a ton of guys that you can make arguments for. There's just like 10 people. Like we kind of ran through it, but I think when I did it, I think he was around like 12. I think 13 maybe. I think he's, like you said, like he's very athletic. Good, terrible blocker though. Not the best red zone threat. That's why I took Knox over him. I think Gesicki's probably a little bit more reliable over the middle of the field, like in between the 20s, but red zone is more important for a tight end. So give me Knox there. And then guys like Noah Fant, I picked because that dude he has the best SPARQ score, I think, like of all time, besides Jelani Woods. I think this year just broke it. SPARQ score is like the measure of like athleticism. And I mean, Noah Fant's dealt with Drew Lock, and he's still going to deal with Drew Lock for his whole career.
I know, it's crazy.
Like I think Noah Fant's so talented, so I'd take him.
Yeah, I agree. Noah Fant's almost kind of similar to, a guy like TJ Hockenson in the sense that they're both, I think they have extremely high ceilings. They're both relatively athletic targets for the tight end position. And they've both been restricted, whether it was by quarterback play, a poor situation, poor team. TJ Hockenson specifically has been on a team where he's been realistically the only threat, especially vertical threat on the entire roster. Amon-Ra St. Brown burst on the scene later on in the season. But I think TJ Hockenson was hurt at that point, actually.
Yeah, he was.
DeAndre Swift was, he was, making plays here and there, but he was really only a big play, big play downfield threat. So otherwise, TJ Hockenson's had to bear the burden of not only injury, but as well as just being the pretty much singular target on that offense with Jared Goff. Matthew Stafford, I think he had in
Yeah, it's Stafford for 2 years.
It's after for 2 years. Yeah, right. Because he just left. But still, TJ Hockenson has not gotten the best of situations, and same with Noah Fant, like you said. I think Noah Fant. I didn't know he had that big of a spark score. That's
It's
pretty
like
ridiculous.
95th percentile. It's even better than Kyle Pitts and George Kittle. It's like actually crazy.
God, and I mean, he did have a relatively decent season. I think he
Like,
had upwards of 700 receiving yards this
yeah,
season.
I think like his stats are pretty on par with Hockenson, but like people say like Hawkinson's always like 6 or 7 or whatever, and Fant isn't even like sometimes 15, sometimes 14, sometimes 17. Like it's just like I don't know. I think they're a lot
Yeah,
closer than people make it out.
Fant is forgotten about terribly, like beyond belief, and he's probably still going to be forgotten about, like you said, because he got stuck going from Denver back with Drew Lock to Seattle. So, although I don't know, I do think Noah Fant is a guy that just deserves more of a situation, a better situation, like you were mentioning. Another interesting one was people were saying that he was better than Mike Gesicki was better than Hunter Henry. I don't think that's the case. Hunter Henry, I think, is a very well-rounded tight end. He does
Yeah,
perfectly what the Patriots need him to do. Everything that the Patriots were looking for in a tight end, he does very well. He's a Mac Jones safety blanket. He's a red zone threat. He can, pave the way for whoever's carrying the rock. So I think Hunter Henry deserves actually a little bit more respect than people give him. And
I agree.
Dalton Schultz is a weird situation.
It
I
is.
think he benefits from being, or he has benefited, I should say, from being in such a pass heavy offense with so many threats around him. He's kind of he's going to see a lot of one on ones. He's going to get a lot of open zones. He's not the most athletic guy, at least to my knowledge. So I'll be interested to see how he does now that I think he probably will be the second target in that offense, right? So I'll be interested to see if he's able to keep that production up. But over the last 2 years, it's been ramping up. I think it was 600 yards and like 6 touchdowns in 2020, and then 2021 it was 808 and 80. So I'll be interested to see if he can keep it up, although not the most athletic guy.
Yeah, I think we really struggle with athleticism at positions. Like there's guys like Cooper Cup that just walk in and have these great seasons, and we can't quite wrap our minds around not being the most talented, but still being good. So I think that's kind of Schultz too. He's not like a freak athlete. He wasn't even supposed to be like the full starter a year ago, but then I think it was Blake Jarwin went down, and then he got the role and he thrived. So
Yeah, totally. And that's a series. I think that's a series you do, right? The most talented against the
yeah,
greatest, right?
the
It's yeah,
greatest. Yeah,
yeah. I like that. That one popped off
it
for
did.
one of them. It was like over a million. That was nice. All right. So yeah, that's the would you rather segment. Let's move right on into the hot take. So I know you got plenty of these. You always post them on your TikTok. You probably could have picked out of a hat and came up with a very good one for this. So we're gonna start with the one that you gave me prior to the show, and this is in reference to a wide receiver that people don't know how to really feel about at the moment. And that's Michael Thomas. And you're saying that he's going to have 1,300 yards and 10 touchdowns going into next season. Let's hear some insight into that.
Yeah, people are. I mean, you see any top 10 receivers list or whatever top 30, like they will not put him on there. Everyone goes, yeah, I just don't know where to rank him yet. Like you too. I think I'm the only person who's like, I'm just gonna rank him because I think he's still got the talent. I mean, even when he was playing on that busted ankle with Taysom Hill, he had multiple 100-yard games with Taysom Hill. Like I don't even know how you do that. Now he's gonna get Jameis Winston, where Jameis is already supported Godwin and Evans, both wide receiver ones in the same season. Jameis is not afraid to chuck the ball downfield. I think Michael Thomas is going to lose the name Slant Boy a little bit. He's going to have a deeper ADOT, and I think that him being put on the pup list isn't an issue. If you know Nick Underhill, he's the main like Saints beat reporter. He's already said it's mainly just to have an extra roster spot. Like they're just going to remove him very quickly, and I've seen a couple sources say that, so I'm not worried too much about the ankle. But at this point, like even if it does like hurt him slightly, he's just got to play it. I think he will, and I think he's. As far as talent goes, he's still right up there with anybody. He's probably top 5, to be honest.
Yeah. No, you go
You
ahead.
go ahead. I was just gonna say he's still at that age, like 29, where it's like Cooper Kupp and Mike Evans are like right there with him in age. Like it's not like this dude's 33, like Julio Jones or anything. He's still in his prime. And an interesting thing, he posted some route running videos and some videos of him running, and I was like, oh, that's cool. But then when you really think about it, like it's him posting it, so like he clearly feels confident in his abilities. It's not just some beat reporter like filming him at practice, or whatever. So I'm happy to see that he's starting to feel confident again.
Yeah, Michael Thomas, like you said, nobody really knows how to feel about him, including myself. I honestly, it's funny that you feel this way about him because especially when he was still healthy, and he had his monstrous, reception record breaking season. I've been very anti Michael Thomas, to a relatively high extent for a decent amount of time now. Obviously him being out, I really can't be. Nobody can really push a narrative when guy's not on the field. But Michael Thomas to me has not necessarily been slant boy, but his physical attributes, what he's really good at, I think he wouldn't be able to translate as much as a guy like hypothetically Devontae Adams going from Green Bay to Las Vegas. I think he's going to translate better going from Green Bay to Las Vegas than I think Michael Thomas would translate going from New Orleans to, I guess, Las Vegas. I feel like his skill set just benefits, the way that the New Orleans Saints, at least with Drew Brees, played, and the way that it ran through Alvin Kamara, and the way that Michael Thomas is able to find space, find separation in one-on-one situations over linebackers instead of going around the outside. Even though I do got to give him credit, when I do watch his highlights, I'm not a big film watcher for the most part. I can't lie, but the relationship he had with Drew Brees, I think it was Brett. Was it Coleman? I never know how to pronounce his last name.
Brett Coleman, yeah.
Brett Coleman. He made a breakdown video talking about Michael Thomas and the season he had. And I mean, what that video really taught me was the relationship and the chemistry he had with Drew Brees was just, I mean, it was through the roof, man. These guys knew what they were going to do without even looking at each other. He was coming out of breaks, the ball would be right in his hands. And he would know even when Michael Thomas would be covered in a situation where to put the ball that Michael Thomas can get it perfectly. So I got to give Michael Thomas credit for that. He's an extremely smart, high IQ guy. He's not just getting open because nobody's guarding him. He's getting open because he knows, what soft spots to find, where to, come off leverage. Michael Thomas does deserve credit in that respect. Yeah. And with Chris Olave, that's going to be, I think Chris Olave and Jarvis Landry are really going to open it up. For Michael Thomas. He's never had an opposite threat like that, other than Alvin Kamara in the backfield. So that even opens it up much more for.
Yeah, and I saw reports already that Carmichael wants it to be a lot of 3 wide receiver sets for over like 50% of the time, which is amazing. Like, I mean, this offense is going to be really pass happy, which we like to see. And I think I like Jameis a lot this year. I think he showed us last year 14 touchdowns to 3 picks, and I believe the 6 games he played with literal like 5th string receivers out there. Like, I'd never heard of little Jordan Humphrey before, and he was running routes out there. So like, I mean, that's amazing. Like the eye surgery, I think really helped Jameis. Like not even like exaggerating. I think he's a better quarterback now. So I'm in on it. I was like you though. I was a Michael Thomas like kind of doubter for a little bit, I think. But then like I realized everybody started hating him like so much. I'm like, this guy's still good. Like I think he'll be okay still. So
yeah, that's how I get with players sometimes. I feel like, sometimes I'll be a big hater of a player and then I'll start to change my perspective because I kind of see people starting to feel the same way. And I'm like, okay, now I got to go to the other side. I was like that with Lamar. When Lamar was, really popping off, I couldn't stand him. I was on the opposite side, running back narrative, all that bullshit. And now that, he struggled with injury, he didn't have a great season last year. I've completely flipped now, for good reason. I'm not just flipping, to be a pain in the ass, but, I have my reasons as well. But Lamar Jackson, for example. And speaking on the Saints, how do you think they're going to fare in the NFC? Do you think Jameis takes them far?
I actually do think they make the playoffs. I mean, the NFC is like relatively weak, especially the East, obviously. I think we could see Packers, maybe Vikings make it, and then I'd say Dallas, probably Eagles are going to fight for that spot. Maybe they both go. And then it's really 49ers and Rams in the West, and maybe Cardinals. But I think after the Bucs, like that division, they'll probably, and honestly, they have the Bucs number. They could literally go 6-0 in that division if the defense just plays how they've been. They still have Dennis Allen. So yeah, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll probably go 5-1 in that division, to be honest. And after that, it should be a lot easier.
Yeah, totally. And, also another question kind of regarding Michael Thomas. Another guy that's coming off of not nearly as much missed time, but a guy that's up there in age, a receiver that we all usually regard as a top 5, even top 3 receiver who will not see the field for a decent amount of time too, is DeAndre Hopkins, right? Where did you have him ranked in your, I can't remember off the top of my head, in your top 10?
7 or 6, 7, I think, right after Jamar Chase. But I still think he's great.
Yeah. I totally do too. Do you think he bounces back from, the suspension? I think it was 8 games between the 6. I think he missed 6, maybe it was 7, 6 or 7 at the end of last year, including the playoff game. And now he's missing 6 here, and he's 30, right? I mean, we saw Julio Jones. Granted, he was dealing with more injury at this age, and he completely fell off. And I'm hoping he doesn't take that kind of fall off. But I do have this weird inkling that I feel like we may have seen the last of real prime DeAndre Hopkins. Especially considering the fact that I feel like although he had such a large impact for the Arizona Cardinals, he still has never reached that, aside from his first season, I guess, with Arizona, that peak dominance that I feel like he had with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. I think he'll be totally healthy. Like that injury, he was basically supposed to be back like around Super Bowl time. So I think by now it's got to be healed. Gets an extra 6 weeks in the regular season. I think the main issue with what's going on with him is Cliff Kingsbury has they call it like the horizontal raid. It's just a lot of short routes that just don't go anywhere. Like DeAndre is completely having to switch his game up, which I hate to see. I think when he comes back, I mean, last year we saw he was really touchdown dependent, which is like a good thing.
Yeah.
He was a beast in the red zone, but like yardage wise, he couldn't do anything because like every yard he ran was within 10 yards. So I hope that opens up. Maybe Marquise Brown running a bunch of streaks will open up a lot of, those like post routes, like 20 to 30 yard range. That's kind of my thoughts on it. I'm just worried that Cliff Kingsbury is going to keep him in this weird role where they're trying to get him like 140 catches in a season and like not too many yards. So yeah.
Yeah, and Diop, I think he's tremendous after the catch too. Which is the very odd part is he's not been. I feel like DeAndre Hopkins is great when you find him in open space when he's able to run a crossing route. He's able to get open on the sideline. Kind of curl back over across the middle of the field. That's when I feel like DeAndre Hopkins has shown some true dominance too. Not only just with his hands, going up and grabbing some ridiculous contested catches, but also being able to get in the open field and make a couple guys miss. And I feel like I just haven't seen that nearly as much for the exact reasons that you were touching on. All right. But yeah, that was my last comment about the Michael Thomas hot take. I do have a hot take myself. I don't know if this is hot necessarily, but I do think it's something that could potentially age relatively well in comparison to the eye of most. But I think the Denver trade for Russell Wilson can go down as a top trade of the decade for Denver, simply because, long story short, Russell Wilson's, I think, 33 years old. We're seeing quarterbacks play upwards of their, later 30s, early 40s. Russell Wilson's notorious for spending a stupid amount of money on his recovery after every game. He constantly talks about it because the guy's just a weirdo. But Russell Wilson, I think he's coming onto a team that has been considered Super Bowl ready for a couple of years now. And I don't think they're going to be too successful this season, but I think later down the road, especially when the rest of the AFC talent kind of dies down because this conference is not going to be this good for that long, I think that's when the Denver Broncos are really going to take strides ahead of everybody. And regardless of how much they gave up, which I think was like 3 firsts, obviously they gave up, the massive Noah Fant, Drew Lock, and I think it was Shelby Harris. They give up a lot in that transaction, but at the end of the day, you're getting Russell Wilson, who's probably well on his way to Canton at the moment for the next, who knows, 9 to 10 years.
Yeah, I love Russ. I've always thought he's good. I have him still, I think, as top. He's my 6th quarterback. A lot of people think he fell off last year. I mean, when you tear your throwing arm thumb, I mean, that's pretty brutal to work with. So I don't think he fell off. Love him. I like the situation, but I'm paused like you too, where I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything. I don't think they're going to even win the division. The Chiefs just have too much experience in my mind. I think the Chiefs have that on lock. And the Chargers obviously are great too. But I think that's going to be a very efficient team. They have a good ground and pound run game, an okay offensive line. It's The defense is great, obviously, though. And then they've got a lot of depth at receiver. So I like the situation he's in. I think what you're saying, though, is true. Where in a couple of years, he'll still be fine. His body will be good. They'll still have a good defense. Maybe they'll amp up the receivers a little bit to some more like higher tier players. I think it's really Cortland and Judy, and then like Patrick and Hamler are kind of just guys, I think. But I would like to see them get like one real superstar to pair with him and then take it to the Super Bowl, kind of like Brady's been getting all these last few years with all those AB and now Julio signings. So that's kind of where I stand on it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Denver Broncos receivers are very odd. When I made my list for the top 32, I don't think I included any Denver Broncos receivers. I'm not going to lie. I don't know. I'm not very high on the big Jerry Jeudy breakout season. I think people are kind of expecting this explosion from a guy that we all know can run routes, can get open, can create space. But I just don't think it's going to come necessarily with this quarterback change. Granted, it's Drew Lock / Teddy Bridgewater to Russell Wilson. I just don't think it's going to be what people are expecting it to. And Cortland Sutton, I think Cortland Sutton's the better of the two receivers. I don't know if I think that's a pretty common opinion, but nevertheless, I think the Denver Broncos probably will need 1 or 2 extra offensive pieces before taking the next step. But I think some people are expecting a little bit too much from them going into this coming season, just because of how much talent is in this conference, not to mention, a quarterback switching, completely new systems with new players all around him. I mean, it's not an easy transition, especially when you're going from somewhere in Seattle where he was there for, I mean, I can't remember how long now, but I mean, he's been there for a while.
10.
So, I mean, it's not going to be an easy transition. So I think the Broncos do struggle a little bit this year.
Yep, totally agree. I think Cortland Sutton, 2 years off an ACL, will be a lot better than he was last year. I was kind of sad to see him kind of fall apart last year, but I'm also with you on the Jerry Jeudy thing. I was like, oh, now they got Russ, like he'll be pretty good, and then everyone else is like, no, 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 he'll be elite, and I'm like, okay, I don't know about
Um,
that.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are kind of thinking that Jerry Jeudy will become sort of where almost like where CeeDee Lamb is right now, and I think that's even a stretch. I think CeeDee Lamb will slowly another talk about another guy I don't have the most faith in. I don't think CeeDee Lamb becomes this top 7 receiver after
I
this.
have no faith in that at all. I can't stand that take actually.
Yeah, I don't know what, CeeDee Lamb is, he's very good, but I don't think people actually understand what it takes to be like a top 7 wide receiver in the NFL. I mean, the top 7 guys right now, regardless of who you really have in there, it's still extremely hard to be considered at that point. And I don't think CeeDee Lamb has shown nearly enough, um, you know, stat wise or even what he's put on tape to really even compare to any guys that are in that kind of conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. He's raw, he's talented, but all those guys at the top, Diggs, Jefferson, Adams, like whoever you think, they're all very refined. You know what I mean? Cooper Cup too. I think he's a little more like Debo esque, where it's a lot of run after catch, a lot of plays on the fly, which is fine. But I just don't think I don't even think he was as good as Amari Cooper when they were playing together. So
Do you have Cooper above him?
currently not anymore really because Cooper is getting older and he got injured a lot. But like for the whole time they were playing together, I was on Team Cooper, and then Cooper obviously last year really dealt with some injuries, so I'm not sure where he's at right now. But as a
I got
receiver talent, yeah, his route running is impeccable.
Oh yeah, totally. I think Amari Cooper, and I don't want to say Keenan Allen because I would put Keenan Allen a few spots above Amari Cooper, definitely. But they're both in this weird realm right now of reaching the talent of their career. They've both been known as some of the top route runners in the NFL. Still, should be known as such, but they really don't offer much else in terms of these deep threat ability. They're kind of just good at creating separation, and I feel like as important as that is, Keenan Allen does that better than Amari Cooper. But getting to the age that they're at, Keenan Allen I think is actually 3 years older than Amari Cooper. Now that I think about it, I think Amari's only 20.
Yeah, I think Keenan's like 2 or 3 years older, but
Okay, I might have to take that back then. But regardless, they're both in a weird spot at their careers where things definitely don't seem to be going up. So I guess that was just a random tangent that I started to go on, and I didn't know where it was going. All right. Well, we'll get into the final portion of the show, man. And this is the most anticipated portion, and I can't wait to see how you do in it. So we're going to get into the Caveman's Quiz Game. Everybody knows how well, not everybody. If you're new to the Caveman's Quiz Game, this is pretty much how it goes. Let me take down the hot take banner. The Caveman's Quiz Game is pretty much just 5 questions, and the first question is going to be an off-season events question. The second is going to be a stats question. The third is going to be history. Fourth, draft. Fifth, awards. You get a question correct. If it's easy, medium, or hard, you get to pick between the difficulty. Easy is 10, medium is 20, hard is 30. You're going to get a follow-up question. It might not always be true, false, but whichever. If you get the question right, you will get half of the difficulty's point value. You get 1 mulligan per game. If you don't use it throughout the quiz game, I'll remind you if you get a question wrong. You can go back into one of the questions and use the mulligan. And then there's a final wager at the end in which you get to choose how many points you want to wager. Pretty much, if you get it right, you double the point value. If you get it wrong, you lose the points that you wagered. So this is what the leaderboard looks like. I'm not sure if you're familiar with any faces up here, but Dave is at the top with 150. Dave killed it when he was on. That happened 2 weeks ago. But just to crack the top 5, you just need 80. And that's, with the way the quiz game is going right now, that's pretty doable. So I'm looking forward to seeing how you do.
awesome.
All right. So we're going to start with the off-season events question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
I told myself coming on, I'm taking all the hards. Give me the hard question.
Oh, God bless. All right, hard to start with. Hard is hard. It's like going to a chicken wing place and they tell you the hot is hot. That's kind of how the hard questions are with this. All right, so he's going hard right off the bat for off-season events. Off-season events hard is, who is the only team going into next season to have co-defensive coordinators after their former defensive coordinator was promoted to head coach?
Who's the only team going to? Wait, co-defensive coordinators? What do you mean by that?
There's 2.
Oh, crap. They have 2 defensive coordinators on the same team?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Maybe I made a mistake. I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought this was for offensive. I'm pretty sure. My first guess goes like Patriots because I know they haven't selected an offensive coordinator yet.
Time limit. I don't know if I said that.
Oh, there's a time limit?
Oh, there's not. You're good. Take your
Okay.
time.
Maybe it could be the Saints because I know isn't Dennis Allen now the head coach now? I'll go with the Saints. Why not?
You're right. The Saints are the right. Yeah, the Saints are the right answer.
Let's go.
The Saints promoted Dennis Allen to head coach, and they now made, I don't remember, I think it was the New Orleans defensive backs coach. I'm reading it right here. New Orleans defensive line coach, and Chris Richard and Ryan Nielsen. They promoted those two guys to defensive coordinator. They're like co-defensive coordinators.
All right.
Yeah, you are right. Wow, that was a really tough question, and you nailed that. Wow, that was crazy. All right, so that is, I got to write it down because I'll forget the point value you're at. But that's 30 points right off the rep. That's not easy to do. And the true-false question for that is going to be this. The Saints also hired a new offensive coordinator. True or false?
Well, he was from in the building. Is that what you're asking? Is he from out of, or is he a new? They have a new offense coordinator, yeah, Carmichael. But he was in the building, so they didn't hire him from somewhere else. So I guess.
Just say true or false.
The Saints also hired new. I'll say true, I guess, because he's the new. Oh wait. He's still OC. He was never anything else. So, because Sean Payton moved on. Okay, I'll say false here.
Yes, you're right. False is the correct answer. False is right. So Pete Carmichael's, I think, has been the offensive coordinator for the past 4 or 5 years now, if I'm not mistaken. But he's been there for a while. Yeah. But you're right. That's one hell of a start. 40 points right off the rip. People don't get hard questions right on this show too often. So that's already a milestone in itself.
Do I have to use the mulligan straight away if I get it wrong, or could I save it for later?
You can save it till the end. If you want to save it till the end and then go back to a category you feel more comfortable with, you can do that. All right. So the next question is the statistical question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
Give me the hard.
All right. He's going back to hard. The hard stats question is, this defense averaged 1.05 sacks a game, a mere 16.7 pressure percentage, but did not finish last in their division last season. Who is it?
For some reason, Falcons are the first team to come to my mind. What other teams? Forget how the Vikings D-line was. I'll just go with the Falcons, honestly. Give me the Falcons.
Holy shit, dude. You're killing it already, dude. That's really? Right. The Falcons are the right answer. They did only have 1.05 sacks per game last year, only 16.7 pressure percentage. They were horrible. Obviously, the whole thing with AJ Terrell is he was able to, play and excel at such a high level, regardless of who he was guarding, without any type of pressure getting to the quarterback from that defensive front. And they are the correct answer. So that's another 30 points. You're already up to, if my math does not do me wrong, 70 points throughout the first 2 questions. So you can crack the top 5, at least tie it with a true-false question here. Or no, this would actually crack you into it. So true-false, the Falcons sack leader had less than 3.5 sacks. True or false?
Oh, boy. That's so low, man. I'm going to say false.
You're right. It was false. The sack leader, I think, I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but they had 4.5 sacks. 3.5 is a bit low, but only having 18 sacks on the season, it definitely could have been some kind of possible for a team that just was not getting to the quarterback. But wow, that is, how many points is that now? 30 plus 60 is 90 points. You're already in the top 5. It's going to take a catastrophic collapse for you to fall out of here somehow. Joey says, don't crumble under pressure. Good job so far. Don't crumble. You're not going to crumble.
Do I play it safe now, though? I don't know.
I guess that's up for you to decide, Mr. Hard Question. Question number 3, though, is the history question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard?
I guess we'll go hard.
Going back to the hard. He's had luck with it so far. The hard history question is, what year was the NFL-AFL merger made official?
Oh, yeah. This is where being young. Young is not good. I wouldn't even. I'm assuming that's probably when they went from 14 to 16 games would be my guess. Somewhere probably in the 80s. I'm gonna say between 82 and 84. I'm gonna go with 84. Let's go with.
That's not 84.
Yeah,
not 84. Your first one wrong, but you could afford it at this rate. It was 1970. So The way the merger went was in 1966 they announced the merger, and then over the next couple of years they were slowly, progressively adding teams to the NFL, and then eventually became the NFL as a whole, and it was completely official in 1970. So you weren't too far off.
Okay.
You were relatively close. But you can use your mulligan here if you want. If you want to save it till the end, I'll give you that option too.
Okay, I'll just save it to the end, I guess.
All right. So he's going to save it till the end. We're going to move on to question 4. This is going to be the draft question. Do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard draft question?
I'll go with
the hard. 90 points, by the way. If that.
Draft is definitely my weakest category, but I'll still go hard.
All right, he's going to take the hard question. The hard draft question is, there were 2 Tylers drafted in the first round of the 2022 NFL Draft. Can you name them?
Oh, boy. Probably not, actually. Tyler. Oh, boy. The only one I know is like Tyler Beatty, but he's like 6th round. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm gonna say Tyler Jackson and Tyler Brown is the
yeah, I mean, hey, it could have been a random name. You were kind of on the right track with picking a random name, at least for one of them. So the two actually, they went consecutively, and it was Tyler Linderbaum. He went to the Baltimore Ravens, and Tyler Smith, who I think went to the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And they went consecutively. So that was a hard draft question. That's not even something I think somebody that stalks the draft would know.
Yeah, that was tough.
Top of their head. But all right. So would you want to use your mulligan here? Or you still want to save it?
What's the last category?
The last category is awards, so just a question about like offensive player of the year and stuff like that.
I'll save it and we'll go into that.
All right. So the awards question: do you want the easy, the medium, or the hard? You have 90 points.
Give me the hard.
All right, he's going back to the hard. I admire the consistency. The hard awards question is: who has won the most consecutive NFL MVP awards?
But I know Rodgers obviously has the 2. But does Peyton beat that? Maybe there's somebody else. Since this is hard, maybe it's not even Peyton. Maybe it's somebody else. I wouldn't even know where to go with that, though. They'd have to be from a very long time ago. I might have to go with Peyton here. I'm just wondering if like a Bart Starr or somebody had like a crazy amount in a row. I'll go with Peyton. Yeah.
It's not Peyton Manning. It is actually Brett Favre.
Oh,
so you were in the realm of, you were almost correct with the Packers franchise lineage. You mentioned Bart Starr, you mentioned Rodgers. Brett Favre won 3 straight
in a row
from I don't want to look it up right now, but he did win 3 straight. I promise I'm not lying to you.
No, yeah, I didn't know it was straight. I knew he won 3 in the 90s. I didn't know it was in a row though. Damn.
Yeah, he won all 3 in a row. It's pretty crazy to consider that, we sit here and, kind of in awe over Aaron Rodgers winning 2 straight, and Brett Favre won 3 damn MVPs in a row. That's pretty damn ridiculous. But yeah, so do you want to use your mulligan here? Do you want to use it on a different? Also, just for reference, I don't have any more hard questions for the rest of the questions that you took them all. So if you use your mulligan, it's going to be on another category or another difficulty.
All right, we'll do, I guess, medium. Should I do awards or history? I'll do history.
All right, so he's going to take the medium history question, and that's going to be this. Who was New England's opponent in the AFC Championship game in 2015 when the Deflategate scandal actually occurred?
The Colts.
You are correct. The Colts is the answer, so that's another 20 points. The true-false follow-up is going to be this. Brady was suspended 6 games the following season for the scandal. True or
false? 4.
All right, that's another 10 points. So now you are up to, this is going to be a good ending. 90 points, 90, 110, 130 points on the board with the wager question remaining. How do you want to play this, Dan? You need 30 points to, well, I mean, you really could wager any amount of points. Oh, you need 21 points to actually win. That'd be some hard math for me to do, though.
Oh, okay, you can do any of those. Okay. And is the question like hard, medium, easy? Do I have any idea or no?
I mean, it's not going to be hard difficulty, but it's also not ridiculously easy. So I'd say probably tough end to medium. Let's put it that way.
Okay. And what's 80 points is 5th, right?
Yes, 80 points is 5th.
So I'll wager, what is that? 49. So I can at least get on your board.
Right,
actually, should I do that or should I do less and just? We'll do 49. We'll make it hard for whoever's next to try to pass me. I guess we'll do that.
All right, 49 points to wager. Let me put it into the banner because I want to be articulate.
That would be first for me, right? By like 29 points.
49, yes. If you wagered 49, yes, it would be. I'd have to do actual math after. But yeah, you're pretty much on the right track. All right, so the wager question is this. Which wide receiver led Super Bowl 56, Rams versus Bengals, in receiving yards?
So the obvious answer is Cooper Kupp, but I believe he had 98, and I think T. Higgins had over 100. I'm pretty sure. Jamar had a big 50-yard TD, but I don't think he hit 100. I think it's T. Higgins. OBJ didn't play enough. I got to go T. Higgins.
You're right. T. Higgins is the right answer.
Let's go.
You knocked it out of the park, so I'll do some final math on that after the fact. But you absolutely took the number one spot. You drilled this, man. You're going to put some confidence into people that play to take some hard questions. But those were not easy, man. I don't know how you just kind of guessed right off the top of your head, but you murdered it.
The Falcons one, I have no idea. But the history one, I had no shot on the history ones. Those are too far ago.
Hey, but I admire the consistency going for the hard ones each and every time. You could have put up, I mean, at the rate you were going, you could have put up like, who knows, 200 something points where you were going.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. You are number one on the leaderboard now. Sorry to Dave. Aaron's getting bumped off from the number 5 spot, but you're number one, and I think it's going to be a little bit of time before somebody comes and touches your score. But yeah, awesome job, man. Thank you for hopping on. It's been a great show tonight. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully I'll be back one day.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, 100%, man. I'll be happy to have you on at any point. We can definitely link up. Joey says, congratulations. You took the hard road and still succeeded. You definitely know some knowledge about football and some stuff that people wouldn't know. Yeah, he absolutely is right about that. I don't think many people that usually come on would have been getting those answers right. But so, yeah, just a final outro. Is there any other way you want to plug yourself, let people know where they can find you at?
Yeah, just DNR Sports on TikTok, DNR Sports Dan on Twitter. I need to grow that Twitter following. I got to get that up. I got to post some of those threads that blow up on there. And YouTube, DNR Sports.
All right, you guys heard the man. Make sure you go checking him out. I have his link tree down in the description of this live show. So if you want to go, just scroll down just a couple inches and you'll find every single link you need to find for him. And make sure you're subscribing, sticking around for any content that I put out on the channel. I think I'm going to release more record predictions throughout the week. So make sure you're sticking around for that. I'm also going to be doing the live show, as the weeks progress as well. So make sure you're liking, subscribing, doing all that fun stuff, and sticking around for the next couple shows. But thank you guys for tuning in. It's going to be a great next couple of weeks with the season right around the corner. And I think I speak for everybody when I say we cannot wait. But I'll see y'all later. I usually end this with a Go Bills, but yeah, whatever, Mr. Packers fan. But go Bills. I'll see y'all later.